Ignore all the laughing, and here we go. This is a recording of the Surrealist Picasso looking awesome looking image in GIMP thing. Now, we are going to go ahead and create our canvas. Created. Done. Next, we are going to go ahead and create a new layer. Now, I'll be honest, second time I'm recording this, you're not going to hear the first recording because it's deleted. I did not do this the first time, and it messed it up entirely. So, first things first, go to Dialogues, Layers, create a new layer, and make it transparent. That is the layer we're going to work in. It's very important that you create a new layer. Otherwise, your image will look messed up. Trust me, from experience. Now, you're going to use the Paths tool. We're going to go ahead and click in 3 different spots. If you follow directions, they say click here, then click somewhere in the center, but drag the little arm things out, so that, and then I'm going to click in this bottom corner, like there. That looks great. Okay, moving on. Once you have that path, go to the paintbrush tool. And in the paintbrush tool, you want to use the sand dunes brush on 100 opacity on a scale of 1. You want not opacity, but size checked. Okay? Then you're going to go to the Paths dialog box. Go to Dialogues, Paths. And you'll notice that my path is not appearing. Okay? I want to have my layers up at the same time. Make sure you're in the transparent layer. I want my path to be visible. Here it is. Okay, I'm going to right-click on the path. I'm going to go to Stroke Path. Here it is. You just want to click this stroke with paint tool, using the paintbrush with all the settings, sand dunes, pressure, size, etc. Hit stroke. And now it's kind of filled in this path, and it looks sweet. I'm going to go ahead and click this eye on the Path dialog box to make the path disappear. And now we're going to go through a series of filters to go ahead and make this look awesome. At this point, we can go ahead and make the background kind of disappear by clicking the eye next to background. Go to the tutorial here. All right, we're going to use a filter on this. We're going to go to Filters. Oh, excuse me, I want this not to be visible. We're going to go to Filters. And we're going to go to Distorts. We're going to go to Polar Coordinates. Okay, and we want to make sure that the following items are checked. Just to polar. That's all we want checked. And you'll notice that my screen looks a lot like the screen here. I'm going to hit OK. It's going to create this awesome looking image. I now want to go ahead and go to Filters, Distorts, Wind. Okay, and what I'm going to do with this is I want it to be wind, left, leading. I want the threshold to be on 12. I want the strength to be on 6. You might have to modify some things. Hit OK. And now I've given this image kind of this cool wind effect. Next, I want to repeat the polar coordinates filter, but using a few different settings. So I'm going to go to Filters again, Distorts, Polar Coordinates. Okay, but this time I want to map backwards, and I want to map from top. Okay, so I'm going to have these 2 check marked as in the diagram. I'm going to hit OK. And now I've got something that looks very similar to what I started with. All right, next I'm going to create a new transparent layer. When it tells you to create a new layer, you should probably do it. From personal experience, I know that doesn't turn out so well if you don't. So I'm going to go to Layer. I'm going to create a new transparent layer. There it is. It's called New Layer Number 1. It says use the Ellipse Select tool to create a circle selection that looks like it naturally fits in the bottom curve of the path. So something like this. So I'm going to go ahead and using the ellipse tool, I'm going to go ahead and create that bottom curve. So I'm going to go up here to the ellipse tool. I'm going to go ahead and create a circle that looks like it fits naturally in the bottom. And you can kind of drag it a little bit so it looks like it fits. Trying to do my best to get it to fit in here. There it is. Okay, I'm going to slide it over just a little bit. Right there. Okay, now it says, tip on the tool option dialog, make sure the fixed aspect ratio is checked. And it's right over here. And now it's checked. Okay. You also want to make sure that it's 1:1. So ultimately, it wants to look like a circle. Okay, it's essentially what you want it to look like. Now, it says next, select the blend tool with these settings. So I'm going to go up to the blend. Blend is really just the gradient. Okay, so I'm going to select the gradient. I want it to be a radial gradient. I want the offset to be 0, opacity to be 100. I want it to repeat none. I want dithering. There, da-da-da-da-da. It all looks good. And now I'm going to click and drag from top left of the circle selection towards the bottom right of the selection to create a gradient. So I'm going to go ahead and right about to here. And it creates something that looks like that. Okay, now, I started from top left towards the bottom right. Let's go ahead and just zoom down here a little bit. It looks like it is not exactly the way I want it to look. Okay? I might want to go ahead and flip the gradient around. So I'm going to go ahead and try that again, but this time I have this checked, and I'm probably guessing I missed that the first time I did. It should have been checked, this arrow box here. So I'm going to start again, go down. Now that looks correct. Sometimes you have to double check things to make sure that you're doing them correctly. I'm going to go to select, none, and now I have this circle here. Okay, now I want to go to the layers dialog box, not the paths. Let's bring up the layers dialog box. Here it is. And I want to move the layers so that this object is behind, by sliding it down, that. And there it is. That looks sweet. Okay, now I want to go ahead and erase a little bit of the path that should be behind the circle. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in. I'm supposed to zoom. Oh, don't want to do a gradient. Excuse me. I want to zoom. There, and we'll kind of back out a little bit. If you hold control and use the rolly part of your mouse, you can zoom in and out right there. I'm going to go ahead and use the eraser tool. But before I do that, I want to make sure that this part of this layer, the one with the swirly thing, is selected. And I'm going to just go ahead with the eraser. I'm going to select the brush size. I'm going to go ahead and erase a little bit of this. Something like that. Okay. Now, scrolling down, and it looks like we should erase a little bit more. Let's go ahead and do that. Right up to the edge there. All right, now it says go to the background layer. Okay, so we're going to zoom out on this so we can see it kind of, we're going to zoom out. Okay, now I've got it in full image, and that looks sweet. Looks like it's tucking behind the circle. We've still got some wind blowing across the front. Okay, that's looking really good. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the background layer, which we disabled so that we didn't necessarily see it. Now we're going to enable it. So there it is. And we're going to go ahead and use the blend tool to create a simple gradient from top left to bottom right. So I'm going to select my gradient tool I want to use the settings. Looks like we're just going to use our previous settings. So I'm going to go top right to bottom left. There it is. Now the next part looks to be a little bit complicated, which is fine. We're just going to have to follow it very closely. It says hide the background layer. So we're going to go ahead back and now hide it. Oh, Control Z, excuse me. I want to choose the background layer. Here's the gradient. There it is. Now I'm going to hide the background layer. And then go to Edit, Copy Visible, and then Edit Paste. So I've got my background layer selected. I'm going to go to Edit, Copy Visible. Okay, and then Edit, Paste. On the dialog, right-click the floating selection. So let's I'm going to right-click this here. And I'm going to select New Layer, which is what it says to do. Finally, hide the two visible layers and reveal the background layer. So I'm going to hide these two and reveal the background layer. And now my pasted layer and my background are visible. And I've got this really sweet image. Okay, and now all I need to do is duplicate the top layer a couple of times, resize and move the other layers around to create some depth. So I'm going to do with this, okay, is I'm going to go ahead and copy the top layer, this pasted layer. I'm going to go ahead and copy that layer, duplicate it essentially. I'm going to let's see if it did that. I'm going to duplicate it. There's one. I'm going to duplicate it again. Okay, so there they are. And I can move them around a little bit. So I'm going to grab my Move tool. I'm just going to go ahead and move it maybe like over here. I also want to resize it using the Scale tool. I'm going to Control Z. You might have to play around with these a little bit. Okay, I want to make sure that the one that I moved is scaled. Okay, you just kind of got to play around with them. I'm gonna cancel that too. I really, when I'm scaling, I want to go ahead and keep aspect ratio. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead. Now I'm gonna scale again. There we go. It's go ahead and keeps all the proportions. I'm gonna make that one a little smaller. I'm gonna hit scale. I'm gonna move it so it's a little bit more inside my field of view here. Okay, and now I'm gonna go to my other copy. I'm going to go ahead and scale that. Make that even smaller. I'm going to move that into the background. Where'd that go? Oops. Let's try that again. This is the tricky part. You've just got to make sure you've got the right things selected. You're scaling them down. Okay. Keep the scale. Now I want to move that layer so that it's like back here. Go ahead and make sure that this is all zoomed out. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move this layer a little bit more so it looks more like the image. I'm going to scale that one some more too. Move it here. Okay, and the last trick is to move these layers behind the original. There we go. And I'm going to move this one even further behind. I still don't like the position of this one. I'm going to move that one a little bit. And I might go ahead and move the original layer a little bit too, so it's like down here. There we go. Something like that. Now, I can go ahead and use a Gaussian blur to blur layers that are far away to increase the idea of depth in the image. So I'm going to go ahead and use a Gaussian blur. Okay, and you find that in the filters under blur. But in order to do that, okay, it doesn't necessarily say, okay, I think I want to apply it to my farther away images. So this is implied, but you're going to go ahead, I want to select my smallest object and apply the Gaussian blur. So blur, Gaussian, it gives me an idea of what it looks like. Okay, I have the preview here. And I'll just go ahead and keep it like that. See, that looks good. And now I'm going to apply a slight blur to my middle image here. So I'm going to go to Filters, Blur, Gaussian Blur. I'm going to go ahead and decrease the blur a little bit, making a 3 instead of a, make it a 2 instead of a 5 like the other one. Hit OK, and now that's a little blurred to give it a sense of depth. Ultimately, that's pretty much the end product. If you have the 3 images, and you've got some depth, and you've got the sweet image. If you wanted to, you could go ahead and apply some like You could apply a little color. Okay, so if you wanted to, you could go ahead and make like the images. You could apply some color, and you could go to step 13 and do that if you wanted. That's not necessarily necessary. That's optional. But you could apply some neat color to this particular image, and you could go through step 13 to do that. Okay, so now I just go and I'm going to select the background layer so that it's all selected. I go to File, Save As. Always save it as an XCF first. So I'll save it as an XCF. This is called Picasso or Surreal. You should be naming it after the assignment number. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save it to my desktop where I can easily access it and upload it to Drive. I'm going to hit Save. Then I'm going to go to File, Save As. And the second file type I save it as is a JPEG. Obviously hit Export, Save, and now I've got two files, one XCF and one Picasso here on my desktop. I am done. I hope that you've learned a lot from this. If you have any questions, you can email me. Otherwise, good day.